early, we wanted to
One moment, please. Well, we fixed some technical issues.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Okay.
Are we?
I think we're live.
Okay.
But let's hear. We can check. You should have a job here and not leave everything to me.
I do have a job.
Which is?
I'm delegating it. All right.
Okay.
If there's anyone that's seeing us,
it says live.
Write something.
It says live on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. We are Kim and Wade. Welcome. It is now 12 noon. We came on 1 minute early. Okay. So welcome to Athens. This is not Athens. This is Airbnb in Mexico City, which is where we are right now.
It's a little bit like Athens, only not.
Yeah. So we're going to do this, and we're going to nope. So we're gonna do that. Hi, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
We're a little out of practice. We haven't done one in a few weeks, and we sort of forgot what we need to do. But here we are. We're in Athens.
We haven't forgotten Athens. We just forgot the technical parts.
Yeah. I will say we're in Mexico City, and it is a little chilly here, and it is not chilly in Athens. So I sort of wish we were back there.
Yeah.
Going through and putting these tours from home. Hi, Bruce. Are really great for us because we're not doing our normal traveling like most of the world, and so it's sort of fun to go back through some of our memories and
kind of relive it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
Hi, Nina.
Hello.
Good morning. It is afternoon where we are. It's actually noon 01.
Noon 01. We're making up our own words too today. Not just today, all the time. So speaking of the weather too, we're headed to Puerto Vallarta in a week to warm up.
Yeah.
Because it's right on, it's like fall here. It's right on the edge of about to get cold, I think.
Yeah, we don't do cold very well. So
we do Athens very well.
Yeah.
It's warm.
So let's go to Athens. So for those of you that don't know us, we're Kim and Wei. We are two full-time travelers. We don't just travel, though. We do work full-time while we travel. So we like to think of ourselves as slow traveling around the world. 2 years ago today, and in case you're wondering, there's the license plate to prove that we are indeed Kim and Wei.
That proves it, apparently.
So 2 years ago, almost to the day, in 2 days, we were on top of the Great Wall of China and decided that we wanted to slow travel around the world. And our goal was to do 60 countries before I turned 60.
And slow travel just means that we spend a few weeks at the least and a month or more in a country, unless it's really small.
Yeah. And so we were well on our way. We've gone to 17 countries. And then, of course, in March, we were grounded by the pandemic and are currently isolating in Mexico. The cities are current. The miles and steps, we have more miles and more steps than that.
Definitely walked a lot more than 4 million steps.
I haven't updated it recently. I need to do that. But we've been, in January, we'll be full-time travelers for 3 years now. So we don't have a home. Our home is wherever
2020 is
we unpack our laptop.
Right. I don't know if we count 2020 as traveling.
Well, we started off this year really strong, but
True.
It is what it is.
Okay.
So let's go to Athens. Now, obviously, most people think Acropolis when they think Athens, and
Parthenon
it's hard not to, because this view is really everywhere you go. You get this view. You see the rock with the towering structures in the distance.
I've read that the Parthenon is the most recognized building in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It is very recognizable.
I guess it depends on who you are. But
So when we were in Athens, we were there for only a few weeks, not long enough by any stretch of the imagination, but we were meeting our son in Serbia, so we only had a short time.
Hard deadline to leave, which is unusual for us.
Yeah, and one of the things we did is we bought a multi-site ticket. And here's a look of the ticket. It goes to 7 different sites.
And you get 5 days to use this from the day you buy it.
Not the day you start, not the day of your first visit to a site, but the day you buy it. So you want to actually start going to the sites right away.
Yeah. Buy it the day that you're going to go. And that was one of our problems, is we didn't know exactly what day we could go.
We didn't know how the timing worked. But, and then the other thing too, is it's 30 euros. If you go to more than one of these sites, buy the ticket. If you're only going to the Acropolis I think is 20 euros, so you won't need it. But
once you go to 2 sites, then you're spending 40 euros. So get the multi-day pass,
and
it's multi-site. And
take the time. We took the entire 5 days, and we were a little disappointed because the last site we went to had the least to see.
Right.
So we thought, let's go spend the last part of our day back at the Acropolis.
And they wouldn't let us in.
You can only go in once. So keep that in mind. Don't go through something and say, we'll come back. Stay there.
And that's why you definitely need to take, maybe you don't need the whole 5 days, but at least 3 or 4 days, so you don't feel rushed to get through, because there is so much to see. It just seems endless. We could go back and start over. And
now we're going to give you a pro tip that not yet. We'll give you that pro tip in a minute. So here's the Google map. The Acropolis is the black star. The other red stars are the other.
So we're going to use our cursor, even though we've been told it's
told
annoying.
Not to, but we will here. So straight up here, this is Hadrian's library. And then this is the Roman Agora right here, and the ancient Agora of Athens right here. You go down, here's the Temple of Zeus. It's also known as the Temple of the Olympian, because Zeus was Olympian.
And that's actually where we're going to start our tour today, where we started it in reality.
And we have a reason for that. And then over here is Aristotle's Lyceum. And then way over here is the cemetery. I have to see the word to be able to pronounce it. And we will mispronounce plenty of words today, so don't hold us to it.
If Sophie is watching, accept our apologies in advance.
So one of the things, the pro tip that we have is when you get off, everyone obviously starts at the Acropolis. We went to start at the Acropolis, but there was a huge line of people to buy the ticket.
I'm a little OCD and I count everything, and there were more than 50 people in line. I counted them.
Now, normally we buy our tickets online. We use Get Your Guide for that. And
we recommend it. It's been
you skip the lines.
Flawless.
It's great. But because we didn't know when the 5 days started, if it started from when you bought your ticket or when you entered, we decided, we'll just buy it and then we'll know.
We get there, because we weren't sure what day we were going to be able to be free with work to go
But
out.
the line was so long, we decided, we'll go online in the morning, tomorrow morning, the next morning,
we'll
buy our ticket, and we'll just wander around the town. So we walked through the Arch of Hadrian, or Hadrian's Gate.
And you can see the Acropolis through...
it's above the little white building. That's the Acropolis up there.
And that's one thing you'll discover as you walk through Athens, that the ancient Greeks were really great at and observant about creating gates and entryways that forced your view into a certain and magnificent area.
And you'll see that as we go through.
They really knew how to frame with their architecture.
And JB, I'm so sorry that your honeymoon was canceled. You will go. It's just a little bit just delayed. We'll look at it as delayed, not canceled. And it's so worth the wait. So good luck to you there. But we walked through the Arch of Hadrian, and you can see the Temple of Zeus from outside of the grounds. And so we went there, and we noticed no line.
There's a ticket booth there, and there's 0 people.
So you can buy the multi-site ticket at any of the sites along the way, and everybody's waiting in the line at the Acropolis. You go somewhere else and buy your ticket if you didn't buy it online, and there's no line. So we bought our ticket, and we are actually starting our tour at the Temple of Zeus.
And I am looking so sad because I'm feeling empathy for the 50 people in line.
He's laughing internally.
I am. When we walked to the Acropolis with our ticket in hand, I kind of waved to everybody.
Because we got to skip the line. That's what buying the ticket in advance does. You get to skip the line.
Right. So anyway, go to a site that's not the Acropolis, and there's not going to be a line.
Or buy it on the morning that you're going to start your tour, and you'll have your ticket right away. So on to the Temple of Zeus. And there we are.
Magnificent.
It's
structure.
huge, as you can see, massive.
Yeah, these are the largest columns ever constructed in the ancient world. And yeah, as we get some closer up pictures, it's hard to get the breadth and size of these. Yes. It's hard to come up with a word for it. But if you look, there's some person with
use your cursor.
An umbrella over there, and you can't get right up to the columns of Zeus. But if you can imagine somebody standing on ground level next to the steps, their head would not come up to the lower end of the pillars.
Yeah, it's that massive. So you can see the teeny tiny people there.
Right.
And then there's another picture
Acropolis
somewhere
in the background.
Yep. You see the Acropolis from everywhere. It's pretty awesome. One of the things that I love to this picture, you're like, why? But one of the things that's really interesting here, and this was the best picture we have, is how the columns are constructed. So you can see that they're in these discs. They are so heavy that the gravity, the weight of the discs, then just form the columns that have maintained their structure. There's no internal
unreinforced masonry, which my PhD in masonry telling you is dangerous. What I find really amazing is that the columns with no reinforcement, and so many of the buildings have withstood all the earthquakes and wars and other disturbances that have gone on in this area.
I actually think we had didn't we have an earthquake?
Yeah, there was an earthquake. Yeah. Well, yeah, one and a few
small one.
Aftershocks.
Not too bad.
So speaking of time, Kim and I are not going to give you dates for all of these places that we go because
it's just old. Everything is old.
If you really want to know, I mean, the information's out there, and if we just spout off dates, you're probably not going to remember anyway.
And it's boring.
Two things. First of all, I'm going to tell you that the Greek sites that we go to were mostly erected around 400 BC, so about 2,500 years ago, or BCE, and the Roman sites that you'll see were constructed about the year 0, so about 2,000 years ago. And that's all we're really going to say about dates, except for one other place that kind of puts everything in
he's going to put it in its perspective. And Sam asked, can you climb up and touch the columns? So in the sites that they're reconstructing and excavating still, no, it's usually blocked off. But as you walk around the city is littered with partial columns, partial column toppers, for lack of a better word, where
there's just bits of ruins everywhere, even in public, parks. You see kids climbing on downed pillars and carved blocks.
And of course, we recommend not touching them because, even the stuff that's littered about, because you just want to try to protect them as much as possible. I think, with so many tourists in the area, and there are a lot of people doing these sites because they're so iconic. Do your
Sam,
part to preserve.
I would support if you tried to climb up one of these columns, maybe in the middle of the night. I would be there to video you. So
and help bail you out of jail.
Yeah, I've got a few euros in my pocket to help out at the end.
But anyway, so this is just to show you, how massive the columns are and how they're constructed. It's a pretty interesting picture. And then this one's a little blurry, and there are several blurry images in this, and I apologize, but it's because things are so far away. They're so big, and you try to give you guys a perspective. We had to take shots that things were further away and blow them up. So this one's blown up.
And we just explained with Sam that you can't get close to a lot of things as well.
Yeah, and so we just wanted to show the detail on the top of these huge towering columns.
It reminds me a little bit of the Duomo in Milano, where you have to go on the roof, climb to the roof to see the statues, because they're so far away you can't really see what you're looking at unless you're up close.
Yeah, I saw this in the picture after we blew it up. You can't see it from the ground really. And then there I am in the very lower left-hand corner. That's how I love being next to these big monuments because it makes me look tiny. Makes me happy.
Puts you in your place, doesn't it?
But you can see the reconstruction going on. There's a lot of scaffolding. I don't know that we went to any site that wasn't being worked on.
You think, or my impression of Athens was that this was excavated long ago and renovated. But every site we were at is an active archaeological site that they are either continuing to dig in some places and discover things, or in other places they're actively reconstructing and rebuilding.
Yeah, so Sam asked about the columns that were down, and those are the pieces. So those pieces go together to make one column. And when you look at the columns, you can almost see where the discs and the discolorations. Let's see if we can get on this one,
yeah.
You can see how they're different colors. So those are the different pieces that make up the column. The columns are too massive, I think, to make one piece. I don't know how they would erect them.
Well, it just wasn't the way they did it back then. They probably didn't have the technology to make one piece. I don't know what technology they had. But can you go back? So to where you were walking next to it. You can barely see in this picture behind Kim, you can't see me pointing at the screen, there looks like some little blocks. Those are actually individual discs.
Like that?
No.
Yeah, they are.
Well, but they're these discs that have just been collected from somewhere and then placed on the edge of the site.
So there's a lot of, when you go to these sites, there's usually an area where they're pulling or placing all of the pieces that they're finding as they're excavating until they figure out where they actually go.
And so the Temple of Zeus is not just the temple itself. There are structures around it, including just people's houses and other structures that were used as part of the temple and the church. And they're excavating those. Yeah. So here's just a picture of them.
Some digging. Of the original floor, some column pieces. And it was a religious center. It was
it was a church or a temple.
Zeus. So okay, now that we have our ticket and we're very, very excited, we're going back to the Acropolis.
So we walk back through Hadrian's Gate that we saw earlier, and I don't know if you noticed, but there were some segways there. So I guess you can rent segways to go through, which just seems ridiculous. But now you start to walk up towards the Acropolis. And one thing that neither Kim nor I realized is that, yes, the Acropolis is wonderful, but it's the things along the way to the Acropolis slopes, that hold all of these other incredible sites.
And really interesting tidbits. So as you go along, take the time to wander up and venture into what it's actually the Acropolis slopes is what they call it. Right. So one of the first places you come up to is the theater of the Dionysus.
Dionysus. Which is my favorite Greek god, because it's the god of wine and drink.
Oh my.
Cocktails.
Anyway, so this is the first recorded theater, or first theater.
World's first theater.
I don't know why I said recorded there. It's the world's first theater. And it's because of this theater that after this theater was erected, other theaters in Athens started to pop up. And, much of our theater experience today is based on this, as you can see. It has the, stepped seats. The stage, the front row are for VIPs and dignitaries.
It has a well back. Carved they are.
Us common folk get to sit on just the marble benches. It's made out of marble entirely. At the time, the performances that would take place here were considered drama, but drama was broken down into three categories, which was comedy, tragedy, and satire.
Right.
And here is a royal chair, so you don't just get a back, you get some arms.
And a nearby table.
And you could walk up some parts, but other parts were blocked off.
So this was pretty accessible as far as being able to climb up on things and even sit in the chairs, which we'll do in some other photos. And my question was, we did sit on the benches here, and it's like, did they sell cushions, or could you bring your own cushion? Because I can't imagine sitting on that on that rock for hours.
Well, maybe they were just used to it.
Yeah, whatever.
So some more seats.
Yeah, and if you look in the back, the seats are fully, every detail is carved into it. And again, just having no masonry experience, I look at that and say, how the heck can you carve that? And the Greeks, obviously, they had metal tools. And I think back to Tikal and some of the other ruins we've been to, where it was just stone on stone to carve things like this. It always takes my breath away thinking about it.
So we're now walking still up the slope, and we come to the
Asclepion, yeah, whatever.
I'm sorry.
The hospital, the doctor's
Sorry, any Greek
office.
people out there, I apologize. So this is a hospital, or AKA the hospital. Now, there's not a lot to actually see here. They're still in the process of excavating. You can see all the little pieces, and it's roped off, and they're trying to place what they're finding.
You can actually see the office for the archaeologists and the scientists in the back there.
Through the trees. But what is interesting,
this is the best part.
This is one of my favorite things about the touring that we did.
And she's going to say that a lot. My favorite.
I do. Everything's my favorite. I love it. This is a review. Believe it or not, people would take the time to give a review of the doctor and the service that they were given at the hospital. And you have these pillars of stone with reviews from patients.
And there are a lot of them.
Yes.
A lot of them. Yeah, it's crazy. And
it's like a modern day Yelp rating system. So,
but literally written in stone.
So it's crazy. You know, we take, as a business, you're getting your reviews is really important to word of mouth. Well, here you go. Took a little longer probably than our modern day review system.
You had to be really had to give good service because, 2,500 years later, people are still reading like, oh yeah, I don't know if I'd see him. And then how do you do that? I mean, I'm assuming if you have the money to go to a hospital or something, you probably own some slaves. So you're like, dictate this for me. The doctor, 20 minutes later, okay, what was after the?
Anyway.
I have no idea how long it would take to carve something like that.
No. So fascinating to me that they have these reviews on slabs of stone. Continuing up.
About halfway up at this point.
We have the Odeon of Herodotus Atticus. So it's another theater, obviously a newer theater because it came after the first. And
please continue.
He laughs at me all the time. I'm sorry. Anyway, and this was recently renovated.
1950s, they renovated it.
And it's an active theater today. And we were there and they were getting set up for a performance. And we rushed to try to get tickets. They had 3 performances while we were there and they were all sold out. We couldn't get tickets. I was so disappointed. So JB, if you're getting, when you start making plans, go here and get tickets because how cool would it be to see a performance there? You can see the city behind it. It's just really spectacular.
And the people that perform there are top notch. Everyone from Pavarotti, Frank Sinatra, Jethro Tull. I mean, just this wide variety, really
all sorts of different
performers.
Types of performances. So it's again the typical theater structure of the day and
of today.
Yeah,
that's the model that's really stood the test of time.
And there we are, proof that we were there. And that they kept us out by a fence.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy that fence was there with the steepness of that slope.
It's really steep.
All right, now almost to the Acropolis.
So what's interesting about this picture is, so you can see the theater is in the lower left, the arches that look out onto the city. And then to the right of that is the hospital. So we're just wandering up. And then if you look above the theater, you can see the gate, the main gate to...
Right. That big structure with stairs going between it is the gate.
So Sam asked how many people can fit in there. I think it's around 5,000 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't recall the number. I know from the stadium, which we'll get to later, but it's in the thousands for sure. It's a big theater.
Look, we're sold. JV's going to go. I'm going to email you once we have a new date. Maybe pick your brains. Of course, we're happy to help however we can. So we're heading up to the main gate now, and again, blurry because this was taken from far away, but I wanted to blow it up. So you can see the Temple of Athena Nike on the right, and of course the main gate as you enter.
Right. And Propylaea just means a monumental gate.
Yep.
And it's monumental for sure.
And then you get to the gate and you can see how you just start to see. You think you are done climbing the hill and the stairs, but you're not.
There's more stairs to come.
You're not.
So this is why I don't know where the segways come in, but I guess they work down near the Temple of Zeus.
Well, I think the segways are a tour that you don't really go into the places. You're going around the places.
It would make sense.
I don't know.
Anyway, so
more steps.
And so the monument, the gate is not a place that you just walk through to get to somewhere else. It's a place that you go to. Because it's so massive and it's beautiful, and there are structures on either side of the steps, and again, it's still being reconstructed.
Yep. And you continue. Wait, I went the wrong way.
There we go.
Oh wait,
you're still going the wrong way.
I'm going the wrong way. Sorry, guys. There we go. And there's still lots of people, so this is obviously where you're going to have the most people. So you are just sort of following the crowd a little bit. You're going through.
Well, there's people walking in, there's people walking out, and then there's people just there just to look at the gate itself. So it's crowded.
And then, did it again. Sorry.
Finally to the top.
And you can see how happy I am. We're done climbing, sort of, not really.
Yeah, the Acropolis, where the Acropolis is sloped. I mean, it's a natural uplifted.
The top of a mountain,
right?
And that's all that Acropolis means, is a city on the mountain. And there's a city on the hill, and there's a lot of those for obvious reasons, because it's better to defend your position. So obviously the most famous building, as you alluded to earlier, is the Parthenon. And when the picture that was taken of me right here, I'm looking at the Parthenon.
It's right to the right as you walk in.
And
directly to the right.
Yeah, the Parthenon. You have a story you want to tell about the Parthenon?
Yes, the Parthenon. The Parthenon was actually pretty well intact up until the 1860s. And if you know your history of the area, the Ottoman Empire was expanding at that time, and much of Europe was pretty nervous about the Ottomans coming in and taking over Europe. So they sent some armies down, and this was before Italy was a country. So one of the main armies that was sent in were the Venetians, and they were able to take Athens from the Ottomans, but they could not drive them out of the Acropolis because it's so well defended. So they were firing cannons onto the Acropolis, and one of the cannon balls hit directly in the Parthenon, and the Ottomans had stored all of their gunpowder in the Parthenon. That cannonball ignited it. A massive explosion that killed hundreds of the Ottomans, and the Venetians were able to take the Acropolis, but it also almost completely destroyed the Parthenon.
And you can see how there's some reconstructed bits here. They are in the process of reconstructing it, and so they don't have all of the original pieces, and they're putting it together as they can. And there's another hill. When you're on the Acropolis, we don't have a picture of it in here, where you climb up the hill, and that's where they fired the cannons.
Oh, right. It's from that area. And it really just illustrates the pointlessness of war, because the Venetians as a country, doesn't exist anymore, and the Ottomans don't exist anymore. And they were fighting, and they destroyed this 2,500-year-old structure that was in good shape for two countries that don't exist.
Yeah.
Whatever their squabble was.
Yeah. So, and you can see the cranes and everything going on in there. Like I said, you're not going to see any of these. You're not going to get that perfect no structure picture.
Right. This is just a photo from the edge of the wall, so you can kind of see how far up it is and how steep. We're looking down at the hospital directly below.
Yep.
As you walk up, and then in the distance you can see.
So I'm going to use the cursor again. Sorry, Nikki, if you're here. Here is the Temple of Zeus right here. And where's
just beyond it here?
Right here is the
Panathenaic Stadium that we're going to go to later.
It's not part of the ticket, but it's one of our favorite places, sort of. So. And
you can just see the size of Athens. It's obviously just one view. The city's massive. It surrounds the Acropolis.
Acropolis. So the Acropolis. So when you're on there, you get a 360-degree view of the city, to the sea, and then all the way inland. It's really is magnificent and definitely worth spending some time. So another really well-known building on top of this lovely little mountain
is the Erechtheion, and it's it's famous for a couple of reasons. We'll show you the pillars in just a moment, but it's one of the few buildings that's not just like a single room. It's one of the most complex buildings there because it was originally built for Athena and I think Poseidon.
Yep.
And then they added to it, but they couldn't.
It wasn't all interconnected like one big.
Right.
It was
Typically when they add
rooms.
on, they take apart the old building and add on to it, but they couldn't because that was a sacred site for Athena and Poseidon. So they just had to add on to it, and it became this kind of complex 4-chambered building.
Yeah.
Which is unusual in for ancient Greece, apparently.
And
PhD in Greek studies.
So you can see, this is a terrible picture of me. I don't know why you put this in here, but behind us is the Porch of the Maidens, which is.
That's what we're looking at. The Porch of the Maidens.
Which is very famous as well. Everything is famous here. We've saying that a lot.
So the columns that you normally see in ancient Greece are not carved in the form of a figure. So that's why this is so unusual.
And these maidens, there's 6 of them.
Yep, there's 6.
Stop laughing at me. They are actually, the originals are actually housed in the museum, which is one of the reasons why going to the museum is important. Yeah. So these are actual replicas.
These are actual replicas.
But one of the things that I find interesting about this replica is they're replicated in the decayed state. So they're in the state they are now, not in their original forms. So anyway, it's just a really beautiful site. You cannot get close. So these are, again, a little grainy and blown up, but it is pretty remarkable. And it was interesting to see how big those columns are when you get into the museum. Okay, Temple of Athena Nike. We walked in through the gate, didn't know
we missed it.
that the Temple of Athena Nike was off to the right. So when you walk into the gate, you guys should notice that.
Turn right, yeah.
But it's right there. We had a list of the things we wanted to see on top of the Acropolis. We're like, we cannot find it. We were trying to use Google Maps. It was terrible. But it's right as you enter, and it's hard to see because it's hanging off and you can't get to it. So here's from further back. And obviously this is about as good as we could get.
So here's where I'm going to give you some time perspective. So I need to look at some notes here. Okay, so this was built about in the 400s BCE, and it was then used for 700 years as a temple. And then when the Roman Empire became Christian, they closed it, and it remained unused for 1,300 years, more or less.
Isn't that crazy? That's
crazy. And then the Ottomans came in the 1680s, and they actually tore it down completely and used the stone to build up the defenses of the Acropolis, because the Venetians were coming, apparently. And then 150 years after that, Greece became independent, and they rebuilt the temple. And then I took this picture 185 years after that.
So that's the kind of timeline we're talking about when you're walking through Athens.
And you're seeing it a year after that.
2
years. See, it's even getting older.
So the thing, and I'll say this, especially as we get to a few of the other sites, walking through this and knowing, like, we see a lot of ruins and go to a lot of historical structures and things like that, but there's something different about being in Greece, because Greece and the philosophies, the birthplace of democracy, all of that really is what our culture today is based on. And knowing that those ideas were all born here so long ago, it still blows my mind. It does. Really does. And he laughs at me because I said it the whole time. We're walking in the footsteps of democracy. It was awesome. And here's a further picture of the Temple Athena further back as well. It's hard to really see it's really hard to give you a full perspective of how amazing these.
And Athena was really popular, apparently, because the Parthenon was a temple to Athena, and then the Erechtheion was for Athena and Poseidon, and then there's this one that's just for Athena. So
yeah, She was a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so
down the slope.
But down the slope. But just to give you an idea, we spent like 10 minutes, 12 minutes talking about the Acropolis. It's a it's a full day. You can wander around, and if you really take in the sites, there's a lot of information, like plaques with the information. If you take the time to read, you can spend quite a few hours up here, even just enjoying the view. Bring a lot of water. There's no water on the hill, and there's no shade, and it is hot and the sun is intense. So sunscreen, water, all of that stuff.
Yeah. There's water on the way up the slope.
Yeah.
Water stations, but once you're through the gates, you're on your own.
So just take the time.
I'm going to go back one just to say, so everyone knows we're still at the top of the Acropolis. So Sam, you mentioned about climbing earlier. This is one spot on the Acropolis that you cannot climb, sit, or rest anything on anything. So if there are people walking around with whistles, and you hear them go off often, and it's somebody just sits down on a block. Well, you can't. You have to sit down on a rock or something. And I think we even got yelled at a little bit, or someone did next to us, because we put our water bottle on something. And
not us, it was the people next to us. But the hard part is there are things littered about. Again, I used littered because
they're just randomly on the ground. They haven't been moved
but you don't know that it might be part of something. And so just be cautious about where you're walking. And then Sam asked, are the monuments a mix of holy sites and fortresses? I think most everything.
So the buildings themselves are temples and holy sites. But this was also, because it's so well defended, that it's a place that the people could come in case they were being attacked.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, and it's not fully restored as to what it was during the day, but there's open space that people would congregate. And maybe not congregate to worship, but congregate to have fun. Okay, on to the Roman Agora. So this is the gate, the main gate into the Agora.
And still the way you enter today.
Agora is basically like a gathering place. It's like a community center type of,
like the town square of today. So it's a place where you just can meet friends. There's or maybe you could have political meetings,
maybe a market, or
markets,
performances, those kinds of things. So
and just like town squares today, there are shops around it, places to eat, that kind of thing.
So when you go in here, this is still under reconstruction and not
excavation.
Excavation, and then not a lot of it's built up. When we get towards the back end of what we're looking at here, we'll see the Tower of the Winds.
There's only one structure that's been fully renovated,
mostly restored, is the Tower of the Winds. But so you can see this is Roman, not Greek, so different types of columns.
And these are one piece.
Yep. Not as big either.
Right. They're more functional, I think, than. And
then we've walked through, and then there is the Tower of the Winds in between.
Again, it's framed by the architects, framed it so that you walk through a gate to see it.
So Rochelle asked, I hear there are a lot of cats in Greece. Did you see cats? Tons of cats. Tons. And it's funny because we also saw a lot of cats in Turkey as well, which is very similar. They're right near each other. So yes, a lot of cats just roaming around.
Not Roman cats. They're roaming around.
Roaming. Anyway, so the Tower of the Winds. So we're still walking towards the Tower of the Winds. Here's some of the original flooring, which to me is, again, that it's just withstood the test of time.
And look how flat and smooth that is.
I know.
Well, this is only 2,000 years old, but still it's like modern.
So here is the Tower of the Winds. And I was trying to get a picture to show the detail around the top. And there it is.
And you can see the Acropolis in the background.
Acropolis.
Yeah, well, you call it what you want.
So
the Tower of the Winds was the first, considered the first meteorological station in the world. And it had a water clock. It's also called a clock tower. So it had a water clock, it had a sundial, and it had a wind vane. So kind of primitive for a meteorological station because I actually do have a degree in meteorology. It's just a bachelor's though, but it's a start anyway. And you can see some of the places, the holes in it where the sun would shine through to give the time and the seasons. And what Sam say? I can't say.
What impact did the Romans have in Greece's daily life, and is it still noticeable?
Well, when they invaded and took over, that was a pretty big impact, obviously. um, as far as today, it's really just kind of, my understanding is just the ruins. I mean, the language is Greek. It's not, doesn't have that Roman Latin base.
And you don't actually, I mean, this is an area that's specifically Roman. You can see it in everything else, but most everywhere else we went really had more of the characteristics of Greek architecture or some Byzantine, which we'll talk about too.
Well, and that was the thing. The Romans really admired the Greeks, and in Rome itself, they tried to copy a lot of the Greek architecture, and they essentially they worshiped the same gods. They borrowed from the Greeks. They changed them to Roman names. It wasn't really until the end of the Roman Empire where it becomes Christian that things really deviate from the Greek ideal.
Yeah. Okay. And so now we're at the Tower of the Winds looking back out towards the main gate, and you can see
the Roman Agora it's long and narrow.
Yeah. And the main space in the center is, where they might have the market set up or where a performance, and people would sit on the steps around it, much like a square.
Right. I compare it to like the square, Heritage Square in Flagstaff, where we're from, where there's, yoga in the square, and there's a yogurt shop, and assume it was like that because yogurt was invented in Greece, right?
Oh my God.
Public restrooms as well. So what we're looking at here, the flat stone that's on those that's lifted up, there are two holes in there for you to that you can sit on, and then you can see that any material passes into that trough, and that trough was actually a stream that was diverted.
That's a very nice way when you do your business,
and it washes it away.
Yep.
So public restroom, that was fairly sanitary.
Outhouse.
Yes.
Or
no, it was
porta potty. But it wasn't so porta because it was very heavy.
Stone porta potty.
Just some more look at the columns. So
this is one of the few items that's, I don't know if it's remaining or it's been propped up. I assume it's remaining, but most of the Roman Agora is still in significant ruins.
Yeah. And then a few more column toppers.
There's got to be a name for that. A degree in architecture, it escapes me.
And here's a great picture that just shows how things are sort of hanging out on the ground wherever you go. It's you walk into parks, and this is just how it is. So this is actually on the grounds of the Agora, the Roman Agora, but it's really like this throughout the city.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, Hadrian's Library. Now you look at this, it's not that impressive. But this is
compared to everything else.
Well, but it's very far away because this is how big and towering they are. I don't think I made it to the top of where the column actually starts.
Another big building.
It's really big, and it's impressive. And it was an actual library that held books.
Well, scrolls of papyrus, right? Which books of the time
were the books of the time. Some, more towering columns.
It's actively being restored. You can see here the old and the new marble.
Yeah.
They were really working on this a lot while we were there.
So one of the things about this library is it didn't just hold books. It was like a modern day library where it would have study rooms and conference center, conference rooms and different things that you would go
different rooms to
talk about philosophy and read. And this really made an impact on me because it just goes to show how important culture was to the ancient Greek lifestyle. You had the theaters and the literature, and when we get to Aristotle's life, the discussion and the philosophy debates. Those kinds of things were prevalent.
Competing schools and competing theaters. I mean, and when it's, I say competing, I know that the schools actually competed or competing against each other for students and who had the best philosophy and that kind of stuff.
And so it's really impressive to me that in an area that was periodically under war, that they had enough periods of time of peace where people could just take part in these cultural things.
It was important to them. And it was a great.
And I just find that that's really important. And, sometimes I think we lose sight of how important the arts are on our communities and our culture. And so we should go back to the ancient Grecian ways.
So this was the most impressive part of Hadrian's library with the flooring that was still
for you.
Yeah, that still was.
It's pretty
visible.
Impressive.
Yeah, and you can't tell very well, but the colors in this photo, but the colors are still bright
and vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another one, little mosaic stones. I don't know if you can get that out of the picture, but it's beautiful.
It's still well preserved, and actually we ended up seeing this in like public parks. And
yeah, you walk down the street and all of a sudden there's this part that's like roped off and you're like, oh, it's an ancient mosaic floor. It's crazy. And you can see how they're getting ready they're excavating pieces, lining them out, cataloging them, and then trying to determine how to rebuild.
And rebuild it.
And then this is just an overview of the entire.
I think if you do make a trip there, that this would be quite a bit further along. I don't know how fast it goes. It's been a couple of years. It'll be a year before it opens, I would assume.
Yeah, but it's still, to me, this is still pretty magnificent. I think if you just take not only the site, but its purpose when you're walking through, it certainly makes a huge impression. Okay, Kerameikos?
Kerameikos, yes.
So this is go ahead.
This was the potters. This is where pottery was made, the potters' quarters for Greece at the time, for Athens. And Kerameikos is where we get the word ceramics, which in English has been changed to ceramics. And it's also a cemetery.
Yeah. So as you walk through, it's really hard to determine. First of all, the grounds are pretty expansive. And you just sort of walk through. Here is
the Lucius Way. It's also called the Sacred Way, which I prefer that name.
And notice how he puts a picture of himself to illustrate way.
Yes, wow. So whether you're looking at actually the road or me, they're both sacred. But this is one of the oldest roads in the world, 2,500 or more years old. It's about 20 kilometers long, and some of it's still in use, apparently.
Yes. So Rochelle asked if we went to the Greek islands. So we didn't, because we only had 2 weeks, because again, we had a hard deadline to leave to meet our son. We were trying to squeeze in a Greek island during our 2 weeks there, but there was just so much to see we didn't. So we definitely have going to Greek islands on our list when we can.
It's a return trip for that, for sure.
Yeah. And we keep trying to find a way to get back there. We were in Albania not too long after this, and we're like, well, we could go to a Greek island from there.
It's really close, just north, obviously.
So we will.
We're going back.
Yeah, for sure. So here's a few headstones.
Right, from the cemetery.
Now they're higher up. You can see, like, we're taking this picture down from the road. So you're walking by, it's interesting. I don't know how to describe it. It's just interesting.
Yeah, the beautiful headstones.
Yeah, very intricate.
Massive. And we're walking along the Sacred Way, which I'm assuming was cut through like this hill to make it level, which is why things are above us.
Here's Way's favorite headstone, the bull. So we were in Athens for 2 weeks, Rochelle, and I was working during that time. So, we both were working. So it's not like we toured every day for the 2 weeks. I tried to work later in the night so we could go out in the mornings most days. And I don't feel like I saw everything I need to see in Athens. But we leave most cities with that feeling, because we just can't get to it all, but we try to prioritize as much as we can.
Right.
So 2 weeks was not enough for Greece, for sure.
No. And like we said earlier, we're working, so it's just like you. You get up in the morning, you have a coffee, we commute to a desk in the apartment or a coffee shop. You commute to your office, and then you're there for 8 hours. But obviously, it's a little more exciting for us because
Yeah.
we're having coffee in a foreign country or we're shopping in a foreign market.
Yeah. So
But
we do a lot,
a
but
lot
we
of
do
work.
work a lot too. Some more headstones, very intricate. Um,
I love this giant urn. I just wonder, is the whole family in there? Or
That's terrible.
It is, but that's
So
what I
you
was
can
thinking.
also, if you look down this picture, if you follow the road all the way back, that's the Acropolis above the tree line there.
So we're fairly far away at this point.
Yeah, we got a little turned around trying to find our
A little
way
lost
here.
on this one.
The other thing about this place, so here is just a little bridge going over what we would assume might have been a river at the time, but we don't really know. And then again, the river, the Acropolis back there along the line, along the road. One of the things we liked about this and is that there weren't a lot of people because it was so far away from the city center and the Acropolis, which is obviously the center of everything in Athens. And we were close to closing time. There were no people. So it was sort of nice to get away from the crowds.
It was very relaxing and quiet, and you can see the long shadow of me taking the picture.
Yeah.
It's late in the day.
It was really nice. A lot of ground to cover, though. Sam asked, does Greece have any national plants, trees, or flowers? I would like to think the olive tree has something to do, but we don't really know, to be honest. I don't know. There's lots of good olives in Greece.
My master's degree in Greek studies is so old, I don't recall.
Okay, so that's Kerameikos. The
that's
cemetery.
The cemetery.
And now we're on to the ancient Agora, which this is just walking to the Agora. We think it might be an electrical station or something with these grand, statues on the outside. It's pretty crazy.
So again, it's Agora just means it's like city square, but this one is really large.
Very large.
I think maybe like Central Park.
And then this building right now is a museum, but it was probably, maybe
probably
city
the yogurt
offices
shop
and stores and other things like that. Really long.
Fully restored. So this is, what it looked like when it was new.
Now, if you look onto the wall side, on the very left side, you might see some artifacts there. And then in front of each pillar is some sort of statue. And here's, again, a blurry picture, sorry. But you can see, so this is before you even get into the museum. We don't tend to take pictures in the museum. I think we may have mentioned that. So,
but it holds typical what you expect in an ancient Greek museum: vases and figurines and
pottery.
Statues.
And keep in mind that this was sort of more of a community center.
Ancient Greece stuff.
Oh my. So they have a lot of stuff like from daily life because people would be gathering here. It's also said that Socrates and...
This is not Socrates.
This is not Socrates. These are just more statues that are on the outside. I did something weird with the coloring on this one. I apologize because that looks fake. It's a real picture, though.
It's a real thing.
Again, Socrates and Plato. And
this is neither Socrates nor Plato.
Oh, you're welcome, JB. I look forward to hearing when you reschedule. Thanks for coming. So that Socrates and Plato and stuff would come and have these philosophical debates here. This is
it's the more modern, it's a Byzantine era church. Then there are a lot of these dotted throughout the city.
And I think they're beautiful. I loved these churches.
They're all really small, and then and there are dozens everywhere.
Yeah. Inside is this beautiful, they have the original artwork.
Really well preserved. I mean, these are the original colors, and weren't supposed to take pictures, apparently. Got yelled at for this, but there's no sign. It's like, we'll put a sign up then.
Other people were taking pictures. We were just copying.
So this is kind of a random picture, but I took it because it shows the detail that they were able to get out of stone. So there's this kind of carved design on either side, plus what's in the middle.
It's just sort of this random, really intricate piece placed within bricks, though. I thought it's just
Right.
interesting.
If something was behind it, or I don't know.
Sam asks, how is the security on the sites like?
Well,
It's present, but not
barely.
overbearing.
Well, there's not like uniformed guards. There's people like in a uniform, but like,
More helpful.
slacks and a polo shirt, with a whistle if you're doing something wrong, or, with a guidebook if you need help.
Yeah. So now we're walking away from the museum and we're heading down the grounds. Again, the grounds here are pretty expansive. There are temples and the gymnasium, and we'll go through all of that, but it's a lot of steps. You get a lot of steps when you're walking around here.
And that was just the drainage. Did you say that?
No, I didn't. But
okay.
Yeah, so that was the drainage ditch. So we're heading up a mountain, and you'll see why in a minute. So this is like the drainage running down.
And it was originally obviously completely covered and probably smooth, just like we have today.
Yep. A statue.
Yeah.
So we get up, you climb up the hill, and you get to a Parthenon looking structure called the Temple of Hephaestus.
Hephaestus.
Yeah.
Festus and Gunsmoke.
Again, under reconstruction.
Looks pretty far along. The other side is completely covered in scaffolding.
Right.
And
not quite as massive as the Parthenon, but very similar to what the Parthenon probably looks like when it's fully reconstructed.
I was just going to say to JB, but I guess he's gone. But by the time you get there, this will probably be finished.
And then looking out from the temple outward, you can see the huge museum building. And then, of course, the Acropolis
up on the right
is up on the right. And then the center, and you can see where some of the reconstruction's going off on the right-hand side.
Much bigger than the Roman Agora.
Yeah, much bigger. This is the entrance into what we think is the gymnasium, which is where, they would have sports and all sorts of things like that. And then, just again, walking around, column topper here, little pedestal here.
So this is the outside actually of the ancient Agora. And I took this just to show that, there's a city around all of these, and the city has to function. So I'm taking this picture from a busy road. I'm standing on the sidewalk. I'm looking across the railroad tracks. There's the obligatory graffiti for a railroad track. And then there's the ancient Agora.
Yep. Crazy. And then the final stop on the tour is Aristotle's Lyceum, which is an actual school. There's not a lot to see here. In fact, you're pretty much looking at what there is. But the thing about this place is this is where, again, they used to, everybody, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, they would be having these philosophical debates and teaching philosophy and all sorts of, they were our thought leaders. They're still thought leaders for us today. And to think that you're walking and in these rooms where all of this is happening is really awesome.
Aristotle's Lyceum was just recently discovered, which is why it's, it's such a basic state of.
So basically you have like sort of the outline of where some of the rooms would be. And so one side is green, the other side you can see where they have coverings where they're working right now. So basically you walk in a circle, and again, there's not a lot to see, but what this stands for to me is pretty impressive. You can see how big it is if you look at the buildings behind it as sort of a marker.
I thought it was interesting to see how they go about excavating and restoring as well. Well, they're not restoring it at this point, but there's some walls. I guess.
And this is in a neighborhood. You actually have to you're going down a road and you're like, is this right? But yeah, it's a little bit of a walk. Not many people there either. Again, there's not a huge amount to see, but our goal was to go to every site. So we did. And I'm glad we did, because again, it's just the knowing where you are is really quite amazing.
And Rochelle asks, looks like graffiti, I guess, referring to the railroad.
Yeah. Graffiti everywhere. Just,
like every major city.
It's a little, I'm like, I wonder if they know when they're doing the graffiti, what they're graffitiing on.
The only city I've never seen graffiti in is Chinese cities, Beijing, Shanghai, clean.
Nothing in Singapore.
That's true.
Anyway, so
back to Athens.
So that is the multi-site ticket. Those are the 7 sites.
Yep.
But we wanted to show you a few other things that we think are worth spending a little bit of time on. So the museum, it does not come with your ticket. It's an additional ticket. But this is as you're walking to the museum.
So they actually discovered this entire area as they were digging the foundations for the museum. And so then they changed the design of the museum and they actually built it above ground level. So the museum is supported on these giant concrete and steel columns.
And you're walking over,
You're walking over like a plexiglass looking down at the excavation.
So that's what this is we're looking down at a drainage pipe.
Right.
Which, you know, is pretty amazing when you look at what our drainage systems look like today. The
Right.
same thing.
Well, you think you see pictures of these beautiful statues and giant columns and buildings, but yeah, I mean they were impressive in the unsexy, basic living that took place. Like drainage.
So this is an actual photo spot in the museum. We don't have very many photos from the museum because we tend not to do that. But this is like I guess you're supposed to take a picture. I don't know. But
yeah, there's places where you can take pictures in the museum and places where you can't, and it seems very random. It's like you take a picture of one statue, says picture's okay, and then the statue next to it is like, oh, no pictures of this statue.
And it depends on who you ask, because I think we were looking to if we wanted to take a picture of something, and Wei asked somebody, and they said no. I asked somebody, they said yes. I don't know. So, but anyway, this is just one level. You can see the artifacts coming in from the different sites.
Yeah, this is, I think, a 4 or 5 story museum with different halls. And,
yeah, it's really massive and definitely worth some time. This is,
so like we said, some of the originals have been taken out of the elements and brought into the museum.
And some of the stuff in the museum is a reconstruction of what they think it is. There's these huge panels of like
you can see those in the background
carved,
of this picture.
Yeah, some of they're carved. Some of them are reconstructed, and some of them are actual that came. But from
there's there's artifacts in here, like daily life stuff, pottery. There's coins. It's really fascinating.
There's a lot to see. One of our other favorite sites is the Panathenaic
Stadium.
I think that's how you say it, but I'm not. Don't hold me to it.
You're saying it with confidence. The Panathenaic Stadium.
So this is the site where the first modern day Olympics took place. It's
the 1864 to throw a date out.
It's the only stadium made entirely of marble, and today it's where the Olympic torch starts its journey to going to the Olympic host city.
And every time Greece holds the Olympics, they hold some event here. I think in 2004, they held the archery event. But you can, it's completely open because it's used today. It seats 50,000 people, and you can run on the track and you can sit anywhere.
You can climb up. In fact, people were running up and down.
Like locals, I think, were exercising
by running up and down the aisles. Here we are in the royal chairs. Wei looks a little uptight.
Yeah, you look too happy to be a royal. You need to be more authoritative.
No, the people
glaring
like
down
me.
On your subjects.
They like me.
Perform for me. Let me see you run.
And then
here we are at the top, looking down.
Yep, looking down, and the lighting isn't the greatest, but it's also
all white marble
with the sun shining on it. So I don't know that you ever get a good lighting. And then this is the Hall of Fate. This is where the athletes would walk down this hallway into the stadium to determine the fate of the outcome of their sport. When you walk in through the Hall of Fate, if you walk into, there's a little museum of all the torches and Olympic posters and those kinds of things. Obviously, I'm very happy with my fate today.
So the other thing that we thought was pretty cool that you'll see around different buildings of the city is the changing of the guard.
Yeah.
And the costume, the uniform that that they use, every part of it represents something from a different era or war that Greece has been in. And I won't go through them here, but I just my favorite part were the little balls on the shoes.
Now, the guards stand still for 1 hour.
Completely still.
And then, of course, the changing of the guard happens, and they have these huge movements. As you can see, the arms go up very slow. So it's like literally like this, like painfully slow.
And it's done that way because they've been standing perfectly still for so long that they need to get their blood flow going again and their muscles moving after an hour of standing still, so they can't move quickly.
And so they have the changing of the guards.
It's almost like a stretch, I guess, really.
So the changing of the guard happens in various places around the city, as well as the main changing of the guard happens at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Right. That happens 11 a.m. daily. But
there's multiple soldiers.
Yeah, it's a big, huge production. But you find these little changing of guards happening in all the streets. At top of the hour, we're always looking to see if we can go find one, because it's really fun to watch. And finally, here's Wei filling up his water bottle. Again, Athens is warm. You're walking a lot.
It's hot. Just say it, it's hot.
But they want you to be hydrated. They have these beautiful water stations throughout the city. The water is safe to drink. It tastes good. It's fresh. Cool because it's really nice.
Yeah.
So bring a water bottle, fill up, and stay hydrated. Make it a safe exploration.
Yes.
And there you go. So this is a picture from one of the parks we were walking through. This is how it came out of my camera. No coloring or filter. It's just beautiful.
From that marble, and that green
little turtles. But
everywhere in Greece is beautiful.
We are able to do these tours from home thanks to our Patreon community patrons. We thank you dearly.
Thank you very much.
If you're interested in becoming a Patreon, that is where our tours from home live after we get done with them here. And you can see Tikal and Antigua and the ones we've done in the past. This is a thank you to our patrons. So you can head over to patreon.com/KimandWei, check that out.
We'd love to have you as a patron.
Yeah. And we want to remind you that in 2 weeks from today at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we are taking you to Mexico City, which is where we are now, but which is where we will not be in 2 weeks.
That needs to be our theme. We can never be in the city that we're giving the tour.
And if you look between the T and the Y, that's Wei right there. This looks like a picture a professional took, but I did. I'm just kidding. It does look good. I still look at it and I'm like, did I take that? But there's Wei, proof that I did it. So that is where we are today. If you want to share this with anybody, we would appreciate it. It will stay live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel for 1 week. That's when it will head to the community for the week, for eternity, I guess, as long as we have it.
Pull the plug, I guess.
And hi, Nikki. You got to see a lot more of Athens than I. Love this tour. Thanks. So you're so welcome. Well, it was work touring Athens because we were really trying to do our regular work around touring Athens, and there's just so much to see. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. So definitely somewhere you need to see some point in your lifetime.
Yeah, and that's
as much as I love Athens. It was great, but I would say that in many of the places we've been, but Mexico City is one of my all-time favorite cities in the world. So join us in 2 weeks. I'm excited about doing Mexico City.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see you there. If not, we'll see you on our blog or Travelog Facebook page, YouTube channel, whatever. Say hi, reach out. Thanks for joining us, guys. Bye.
Cheers.